When I wake up in the morning, the first question that I ask is, what are we going to do around creating a new future in law and politics? What is that going to look like? How can I have more conversations with people who are committed to that as well? How can I partner with people around the world who share in that vision, share in that future? Now, in the Conference for Global Transformation over the weekend, I really got to discover that there is a world of people out there who share that commitment. The commitment doesn't belong to me. There may be a way in which I see things, and that can be valuable, but it doesn't belong to me. There are so many people in the world who want a brighter future when it comes to law and politics. There are so many people fighting for access to justice. There are so many people who want judiciaries to work in a way in which there is impartiality. There are so many people who are looking to create more efficient systems within the structures of the courts. There are so many people who are frustrated with the way in which conflict resolution is rarely the outcome of a legal dispute when you go to a court. I work with some of these people. I know that's what's going on. It's a privilege. But when we think it's just about us, we're limited. We see all of the burden of trying to create this change in the world as if it's up to us to make it happen. Well, it is and it isn't. You are both it, and there are others out there who are also it. There are others out there who share your commitment, and if you partnered with them, something magical would be possible. We know that when we augment our forces, something remarkable can take place. But when we try and do things on our own, we're stymied. We're limited. There is a limit to the individual experience. We are on this earth to create a collective experience which transforms what we know is possible. The commitment that I have is really about creating these partnerships in law and politics, which bring forth a new future inside of what law and politics looks like. A future where you really get to discover that anything outside of the interests of society and the happiness of people is just a mistake in those domains. How could it be that these institutions which evolved and came about to deal with this exact concern could exist now for anything but that? Why do we have social institutions in the first place if they are not for that? So then we have a question to ask. Anywhere where we're not legitimately or authentically operating consistently with this context, there's a question to ask us why. Why are we going to stand for that to be the way things are? Now, we're creating this legal transformation at the moment in terms of technology, in terms of the role that AI is playing in what the future looks like. But that's a small part. The AI is only as good as the ability to create communication in the world, which shifts what things look like. If you create legal documents through AI, which are a replication of things which are unworkable before, then all you have is an unworkable form of AI in the legal industry. So we want to look at what are we trying to communicate in the world such that a new future can be realized. If we want access for justice, what's that going to look like? How can we communicate in a way that those who feel disenfranchised experience, we are for you? How can they get that to their core? How can they experience being seen and heard? Because from my experience of 14 years looking at the human condition, the fundamental thing that we share is the desire to belong. And to belong is to be seen and to heard, to feel accepted. Now, when we feel like we're left out of society, we don't feel seen and heard. When we don't have access for justice, we're not being seen and heard. When we don't have equal protection before the law, we're not being seen and heard. When the disputes we raise get silenced, we're not being seen and heard. There's an opportunity to shift that paradigm. But the opportunity comes when we shift the lens from which we're seeing. We shift the lens from our vision to what would it look like for the world? What would it look like for society as a whole? How can we bring that into fruition? These are different questions, and they're not questions where you have to know the answer to. That's the beauty of the question. The question is a place to look from, not an answer to get. When you look from the question of the interests of society and the happiness of people, you look at legislation differently. Look at the amount of legislation that we have and go, hey, is this actually working? 3,000 pieces of new legislation a year are being brought forth? What the actual fuck? Who on earth has time to read all that if they're a member of parliament? Well, newsflash, they don't. Worse yet, they don't understand what they're reading if they are reading it most of the time. So we've got to rethink what it is to legislate in the first place. Because if we don't do that, we're just going to have more of the same crap over and over and over again. You can have people write legislation, but if you're expecting an MP or a politician to be the person who's going to read it all, think again. They don't have time. They're dealing with their MP surgeries. Surgeries which are set up to people expecting their problems to be fixed. The problems aren't going to be fixed. The politician doesn't have the power to do that. They can write on a letterhead and that's about it. But we've set the structures up to have people fail. We have the structures so people fail in society. We've set the structures up so that politicians fail. We're utilizing architecture and institutional frameworks from the 18th century and expecting them to work. It is insane. It is insane. And until we start to really get that, we're going to be just papering over the cracks with more stuff, more technology. And I'm not against the tech. The tech is fantastic. It can solve lots of things. But if you don't deal with it from a human concern, it's not going to be the answer that you want it to be. It's going to provide some replication of what already is. And what already is not working. So then the question becomes, how can we create something which works? Well, consider that a starting point is to look from a different context. It's to look from the context of the purpose of law, the purpose of politics being for the fulfillment of the interests of society and the happiness of people. And what does a future look like inside of that? It's dramatically different. For politicians, your lives work. Your mental health is no longer the same challenge that it has been for so long. You're not stuck with so much legislation which you don't understand and can't even get through. You're not reading these red boxes until the end of your day on 7 days a week and wondering what on earth have you done to put yourself in this position. You have a life. You have a family life that works. You don't have to divorce your family to be in politics, to make a difference. That's insane. Why would we set up the structures for people to lose when they're so fixated on winning? That's insane. But that's what we're doing. We have created the structures so that people will lose. And we don't even realize we're doing it. We just think, oh, it's the politicians that are the problem. No. It's the structures that we have in place which are replicating the past.